being an ex-fetus model, I actually have a lot of fear around losing weight. I have this very irrational fear that I'll get uglier as I lose weight.
Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today we are actually going to be talking about, we're going to be taking clips from a 2-hour-long podcast. So we're not going to be going over the entire podcast because that would make this video very long, which I'm sure it's already going to be longer than most people want it to be. But this is the video that we're going to be talking about. And as you can see, the title is Groomed into Feederism. It is from the channel We're All Insane, where there's a lot of podcasts talking about random other things. I've never seen it other than this. But the podcast focuses on Rosie, who, as you could see, she's a larger woman. And she talks about getting groomed into feederism and how that happened. But there is so much more to the story that I felt was interesting because I feel like probably a lot of the things that she has went through and the experiences that she has had at her size, there are people that can relate, maybe not exactly. I would hope not exactly, because her story is very, very sad and there's a lot of really messed up stuff. But I do think that there is some level of, you'll be able to relate to it a little bit. Here's a quick summary of some of the stuff that was talked about. Again, 2-hour podcast. I will link it down in the description if you're interested. I would suggest that you watch it, but it is 2 hours. So this is a summary. Rosie's story is she suffered sexual trauma at age 6 by her male cousin who was 12. He was arrested years later for similar crimes. She was raised Mormon, so a lot of the things were swept under the rug, including her assaults. She left Mormonism and went to therapy at age 18 after being misdiagnosed as bipolar and undiagnosed as autistic, which she recently is trying to get a diagnosis for that. That same year, she found BBW Reddits and immediately felt important and accepted there because of her large size, around 500 pounds. She started meeting and hooking up with men who viewed and fetishized her Reddit posts. From there, she started performing on SSBBW corn sites, or supersized BBW, I'm pretty sure is what that stands for, which made her a good amount of money at the time. Her being so open of these sites eventually led her to being blackmailed, stalked, bullied beyond belief, but it seems she continued because she didn't have a sense of belonging or a way she thought she could make money outside of these fetish sites. After leaving Feederism, Rosie seems to want to be open with her story to help others her side avoid the same path that she went down. Here's a compilation of Rosie's journey with a relentless feeder stalker and how she used her fat body to make money for years.
Feederism is a kink that is a part of some of the plus size spaces. It's hotly debated. There are a lot of people that are super against it. There are a lot of people that are really for it. And at its essence, at its most innocence, it's about, like I said, a kink regarding feeding someone generally for the purpose of them being fat or getting fat or gaining weight.
So I think, like, for myself, when I hear that, I personally don't have any like strong aversion to that, or like I don't have an issue, right? I don't think that is in and of itself, people aren't allowed to do that. I think if you have two people that are on equal playing fields, that are consenting, right, and they both understand what's going on here and they have both accepted what's going on here, like, I'm not one to step in and say, like, you're not allowed to do this. But as we will see in the video and as she explains, sometimes that's not exactly the case, and that's where things can get a little hairy.
There's a big umbrella when it comes to feederism. And the thing about this guy is I think he was into what's called death feederism, and that's where I have a lot of problems. And death feederism is what it sounds like. It's feeding someone to the point of getting so fat and so big that they die.
That one's tough to hear, right? So for me, the way I feel is like, my initial thought is like, well, if someone's okay with that, then they should be able to do that. But at the same time, like, I think if someone is, and I'm talking about the feedie, the person that would be eating the food, if someone is okay with that, there's probably a lot that's going into their mental health and their state at that time to where they would be okay with that happening, right? And so that's where it's like, at what point can someone decide for themselves, or at what point should someone step in for their better interests, right?
But I actually had one in real life interaction with my stalker, while I was, I think, a year into my relationship. I have family in Indiana, and he knew that, and I was planning a trip to go see my family, and he basically made it clear that I didn't really have a choice about seeing him, and I just needed to make it happen because I know what he was capable of, and he made it clear.
So it's probably a little confusing if you didn't watch the whole video, but she's talking about this person that she had met online, that they ended up having some sort of like relationship, friendship, but he made it very clear that he had a lot of connections, and it was very easy for him to basically ruin someone's life. And when he was telling her this at the time, she wasn't really afraid of him because they were quote unquote friends, and she didn't have anything to worry about. But as the relationship continued, she realized, oh, all these things that he's saying that he's doing to other people, like if we're not friends anymore and, you know, he decides that he wants to do it to me, he absolutely could. And so that's what she's speaking on here.
So I had to lie to my boyfriend. I had to lie to my family. I believe that when we met up, he recorded me on his Google Glasses without my consent. I know he stealthed me. And he coerced me into an act of feederism without me knowing what it was. I didn't know what to do, and so, you know, the act finished. And
so did you guys have sex?
I mean, yeah.
Rape,
yeah. It's like date rape. It's just it's hard. It's hard because like in 2020, like I was raped. And it was a very different experience.
Right.
But...
Well, I don't think there's a clear-cut definition of
because I was trying so hard to convince myself that I wanted to be there.
Well, I think, too, when you're trying... It's like fight or flight. When you're trying to get through something...
You know, that act, for me, with regards to feederism, I really didn't... I actually kind of had a no response after that event for many years. And then me and my ex broke up for the first time in 2019.
But like that's when you learned about like that term, and like that's what your stalker was into.
Yeah, I got back into the adult spaces in like 2019. So from 2019 till the end of 2021, I did like amateur, like more underground adult work because I really needed the money. My ex and I broke up, and I moved back to Georgia. And that was when a friend told me about a website that's basically like a social media website for feeders and plus size people.
I hate when I hear that, like, and I don't know, maybe this is just me not fully understanding it, but when I hear someone that gets into something like that, whether it's like, you know, like an OnlyFans thing or like making content that's like sexualized because like they felt like there was no other option. So it's like, did that person really want to be doing it, or were they just doing it because they felt like there was an quote unquote easy way to make money, right? And I feel like a lot of times when people go down that road, in the moment it feels like this makes sense, but then when they are, you know, it's been a while and they are really thinking about what they're doing, they're not happy actually, and they really don't like that they did this thing. And a lot of times those things just stay on the internet, right? When something's on the internet, once it's there forever, right? So I really struggle with that. Like, I think people should be able to do what they want, but also, like, are you really doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because you feel like you have no other option? And if you are doing it because you feel like you have no other option, do you really even want to be doing it? I don't know. I don't have the answer. I struggle with that one a lot.
You don't have to be a feeder or a feedie to be on it, which a feedie is the person that the feeder feeds.
When you were doing that fetish on your own, was that, and like you were catering to other people that had that fetish?
Yes.
So basically, like how did that operate? Like,
yeah. So basically, I mean, for example, one weekend, some guy gave me $600 to have, and the only stipulation is he wanted me to spend it on food. They would pay for content regarding, like, basically I would just do salacious mukbangs, but you know, the kind of what you wouldn't put on YouTube. I never posted any of that content on mainstream platforms, even if it would have technically been safe for work, because I do have a lot of issues with the mukbang industry, and like specifically it's a very like touch and go, because there are some that are genuinely innocent and provide like a certain level of entertainment that's not sexualized, but then you've got people like Nikocado Avocado, you know, very clearly catering to the fetishists. I could write I could perform a 2-hour video essay on what the fuck Nicocado's doing, but
So this one is tough for me because, I mean, I think if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I'm not a huge fan of mukbangs. I don't like watching people eat, but I don't think that they should be taking off of YouTube, especially like when we're talking about like, you know, I've had so many comments of people be like, well, they're clearly eating themselves to death, and that's why they shouldn't be making mukbangs or like putting them on YouTube. But I've always said that, like, I really doubt that YouTube would take a stance and be like, you're too fat to make mukbangs, you know? But even if there is a level, like, I don't know, I'm obviously not an expert on this, but this is the way I feel. Like, even if there is a level of kink and like people are like turned on by something, like, just because that is a possibility, I don't think that means that shouldn't exist, right? Like, there are people that, you know, like feet a lot, and like I can see feet right now, and you know, there might be people that like really like that, but like, does that mean that you shouldn't be able to show your feet on YouTube? Like, I don't think so, right? And like, so I don't necessarily agree here completely. I think that mukbang should be able to be on, as long as, you know, the person isn't doing anything that is over the top sexual to where it's like, you know, against terms of service. I think if people like it, and they get off on that, then that's their thing. And if people have found a way to not break TOS and it doesn't, you know, I personally don't think that YouTube will ever do anything about that. And I don't think that like those people should be, you know, in trouble by YouTube or those things. Like, do I think that it's great and I'm a fan of it? Not really. I don't really like them very much, but I don't think that YouTube will. I personally would be surprised if YouTube took some sort of stance on it, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
You know, and it's for the money, and it's just, I find a lot of frustration. It's like, if you're gonna do that, keep it to the adult platforms. Like, kids watch this shit, and it's normalizing. There's certain things that are normalized in that style of content that is not healthy or good. And then even like mukbangs with people who are maybe straight sized, or, you know, they're not overweight. There's just the way that you go about it, how you do it.
And there's some weird ones.
There are some weird ones. And it's like, but also the act of a fat person eating on camera is not a mukbang, is not feeder content. Like, and I'm very vocal about that. Like, when I do eat on camera, I edit around in certain ways, and there are certain things I try to avoid because I know what the feeders want. Mm-hmm. And I want to also be a lifestyle person. I want to cook and eat on camera. You know, I don't want to feel like I can't do that just because I'm an ex-fetus model. You know, I don't want to feel like I have to be performative in that way. I struggle with that a lot.
The way I see it is, like, if that's what you want to do, then you should do it, right? Like, if someone is, you know, turned on by it or whatever, like, they get the rocks off on it, like, there's nothing that you can really, I don't know, there's nothing you can really do about it, like, other than, like, try not to play into it as much as possible. But, like, people are people, man. Like, I've had some weird messages of people saying, like, I did this thing that turned them on, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to live my life based on what this person likes or dislikes. And so, like, if me showing a picture of myself shirtless, or me just working out, and they're like, oh, I love this, it's like, okay, I mean, I'm not going to stop doing this because it seems to turn you on. Like, obviously, I'm not doing it because I want to do that. I would really rather not know. And usually if someone messages me a lot about that stuff, I'll just block them, because I'm like, I don't need to know. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I can't stop you from it. But you don't need to let me know. It's none of my business. You know what I'm saying?
You mentioned that I feel like growing up with everything that you had gone through, eating was like a form of coping for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I know on our call you mentioned that you're kind of going through like a health journey right now, right? Or
yeah.
Okay. So can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, back when I was like, you know, 9 years old, I would sometimes eat so much to the point of throwing up because my body physically couldn't hold the food in anymore. thankfully I haven't been in that state in many, many years. But you know, throughout some of my early 20s, I think I still dealt with binge eating. But, you know, through the years, I've done, I did ED treatment. I got diagnosed with binge eating disorder in 2017. And then I went against doctor's advice and tried intermittent fasting. And it did end up causing me to overcorrect. And so I have battled with.
Yeah, that's a tough one. This is a tough one. IF or intermittent fasting, if you've struggled with BED, you're flying really close to the sun. You're flying really close to the sun, and it usually ends up bad more than it ends up good, from what I've seen.
Like bouts of like anorexia symptoms, and like to the point of like in 2019 when I was working a job, I literally passed out on the floor and threw up, and they had to call an ambulance because I just wasn't eating. And you know, I was also struggling financially, so that was a fuel for that too. But you know, I've dealt with that even in recent months, and it's especially like when the diabetes thing happened and I didn't know what was wrong with me. I started like just having eating behaviors, and I've become in a way better at like restricting myself, because it's like I've gotten to a point with food that it's like now I very rarely ever want to binge. And when I do want to binge and I start to do it, I feel so physically awful and disgusting. It's like I can't.
Yeah.
And so now it's like my focus has been more on my like overall health and wellness, and like my mental health, and like getting the mentals in order because my brain has been the thing that's made it impossible to fully address this. Like I'm not.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that especially anyone that's gotten to the size that Rosie is or bigger, it's almost never just, oh, they're eating too much and that's it. There's nothing else connected to it, right? There's almost always some sort of trauma, something going on in your brain, or you know, something happening that isn't just eating too many calories. Like they are connected. I've always said that, like, I think that you don't have to like fix your mental health before you can lose weight. I do think that you should work on both of them, and I think you can work on both of them in tandem, and I do think that it's actually pretty healthy and like a good way to go about it, instead of telling yourself I need to be healthy mentally before I can work on these things, because I feel like that's a really arbitrary and very like hard to understand line. Like, when have I crossed the line of now I'm ready to work on my weight? You know, I think working on both of those together, I think working on the weight helps your mental health, and working on the mental health helps your weight. So working on them both together is a good plan, in my opinion.
I am not pro weight loss surgery at all. And the reason for that is I just believe that it's medical approved starvation. There's no adequate science to me that explains how amputating your stomach and eating that little calories is any different than being an anorexic.
Now that's quite the claim there. I think that, I mean, I disagree. I think that weight loss surgery over the years, it's gotten better. I don't think it's for everybody, but I absolutely think that there is a person and there are people out there that weight loss surgery is the best option, and it is literally life-saving. And so while I think that if you can lose the weight without the surgery, yeah, go down that road, because I do think that, yeah, getting surgery and, you know, changing the way that your body works is going to have side effects. And so if you're able to lose that weight, which is the end goal that you want, without having those side effects, without having to go through a surgery, then yeah, of course, that's the option that you should take. But if that's not working for you, then I think weight loss surgery is, you know, a viable option. It's not perfect. And I'm not someone that's like going out there trying to get everyone to get weight loss surgery, but I'm not going to shame someone if that's the choice that they decide to make.
It makes no sense to me. It never will. And I think the long-term damages are not well enough researched. Both my parents have had weight loss surgery, and my dad like over 20 years ago. And I see the issues that he's having with his bones now. And I'm sure if you asked him, he'd say that he doesn't regret the surgery and he loves it and all that.
So here, I struggle because, so the dad got it 20 years ago. And so not to be morbid, but like, would he still be around if he didn't get it? Right? I don't know. Like, it's very possible that he wouldn't, and that's why he decided to get the surgery, because it literally saved his life and it made it so he could live longer. And so, like, again, I'm not going to shame someone. It sucks that he's going through things medically right now. And, you know, again, it's with anything, you have to weigh out the options and decide if it's right for you. But, you know, most of the people that get weight loss surgery, it's like they see it as a last resort. They're like, I don't know what else to do. Like, nothing else is working, right? And so I wouldn't shame anyone, but I do think it's important. And I'm not, again, I always try to make it very clear, like, make sure you do your research, make sure it's something that you actually want, because there are lifelong effects that come from, you know, weight loss surgery.
I haven't actually asked him yet. I don't, frankly, really want to have those conversations with people. Like, just on my way here at the airport, some lady was giving me her spiel about losing 80 pounds on weight loss surgery, and you just have to go, thanks. Right. I would just like my plane ticket, please. You know, and you know, that's just kind of what you experience as a fat person, and especially as someone of, you know, my fatness, right? And my level of fatness. And it's just like, you know, I have been in this range that I'm currently at now. In fact, I'm lower now than I've been for most of my life. Since I was 18, 19, 20, I was over 500. My height was like 550, but I was averaging like 532 for many years. And now I'm down to, like, last I checked was 480. When I launched my OnlyFans, it was at the recommendation of the person that I connected with, basically because part of how they were paying me was in exposure and shouting me out and stuff. Cause, like, I did pretty good on my own, like, converting sales on my own within the first couple of days. But, you know, they definitely gave me a boost on that. But the content was geared towards specifically, like, the feederism side of things, because, like, that's what makes the most money.
Right.
And it was just, I just realized as time was going on how unhappy it made me, how much I didn't actually want to do it. I felt almost like stupid if I didn't do it, because it was just like money sitting on the table that I was ignoring, even though it definitely doesn't bring me joy. And
I can understand that to an extent. Like, this is something I think about, is like the amount of money that I could have made through social media if I just didn't care, right? And I just was like, I'm just gonna try and make as much money. It's so, like, it's ridiculous how much money I could have made. But, like, I'm not going to go there, because, I mean, one, I would feel terrible. Like, I would just not feel great. I would be very disappointed in myself, like, if I was, like, taking advantage of my followers and stuff. But yeah, I think that a lot of people go down that road. They're like, well, it's like free money, but, like, yeah, it's just not worth it, man.
You know, I want to write a book one day. I want to be like, you know, my dream life involves, like, traveling and being, like, you know, being paid to be myself, you know, like, I don't know, you can call me Delulu, but I just feel like I have the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
I just need the experience and ability to get in front of people and show them who I am, and that I am authentic, and, like, I show up as me. And I have a lot to talk about. I have a lot to say, and a lot that I've experienced. And, you know, I do have multiple chronic disabilities, and some invisible, and most of them are invisible. And I have these limitations that I never want to fully hold me back. And I'm 31 now, so now is the time for me to kind of reclaim my life and get myself somewhere. You know, being an ex-fetus model, I actually have a lot of fear around losing weight. I have this very irrational fear that I'll get uglier as I lose weight. And that is something, like, I don't even know how to unpack that with a therapist, because it's like no one can really relate to that unless they've been a model, like, at my size. And so I've got a couple friends that when I say that to, they're like, yeah, I get it.
I was going to say too, I feel like
it's so interesting to hear that, because, like, I've heard similar things of, like, like when they would look at like celebrities that have lost weight, and then there'd be comments, right? Oh, she looked better when she was bigger, or he looked better when he was bigger. Now he just looks malnourished. Now he just looks unhealthy. Now he just looks this. Now he just looks that, right? And it's just so interesting because like for me, losing the weight was like there was no real negative, right? When it came, like it made my life so much easier, and I was just so much happier, right, when I had lost the weight. Now, losing weight isn't going to solve every problem. I've said that many times, but like it's interesting because again, another thing people will say is that, oh, I'm afraid to lose the weight because I think I'll look terrible with loose skin, and like loose skin looks worse than being overweight. And I can understand where people are coming from with that, but I think more than anything, that comes from a fear of the unknown. Like when we're overweight, we know what we look like at our size, but we are terrified of what we're going to look like and like what the loose skin is going to look like. And I think it's good that there are so many people talking about loose skin now, but also I think a lot of people get very scared because they'll see that and they themselves might even think, "Ooh, I don't like how that looks," right? And then they're like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to go down that road. But like my advice to Rosie and anybody watching this that might feel that way is like the amount that your life changes and how much you can move. Like Rosie said so many times that all these chronic issues, obviously losing weight isn't going to solve all those, but like being able to just move freely in your body is so amazing when you have lived a life where you can't do that. Like the amount that I can move now and the things that I just enjoy doing now versus when I was at my heaviest is so different. And I can't even imagine how trapped I would feel in my old body now, because of like everything I enjoy doing is about moving my body. And like, so there's so much more to life than how you look and like how people perceive you. There's just so much more to like, to like live for than just how you look.
I feel like it kind of boils down to a place of comfort. Like if you've been in a way, it's like if you've been the same way for so long, you're comfortable there. So it's like the fear of the unknown of like, I mean, I feel like that's normal.
Yeah. And more so than that too, if you really think about it, the only ever validation I've ever received for my physicality has been related to my fatness.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm so much more than that, and I know that. But at the same time, that doesn't change my brain from being like...
And this is all just a show. It's all just a show.
But it doesn't change my brain's like initial fear response. Like, because I started losing weight, and I didn't lose that much weight. And all of a sudden, I was looking in the mirror, and I was already experiencing like body dysmorphia of like, wow, I look so small. No, but you don't. What the fuck are you talking about? Your hips are still above 70 inches. Shut up. Like, you're still fat as fuck. It's like, I've never been one to, like, think of fat as an insult, at least in my adulthood. And, I know that I'm beautiful, and I know that has so much more to do with my heart and soul than anything else.
Absolutely.
So I just thought that this was, like, a really interesting podcast and, like, just very things that you don't hear talked about a lot. Again, there's so much more in that podcast, so I'll make sure I link it below. If you're interested, definitely watch it and listen to it, the whole thing, because there's so much that I didn't share in this video. But I thought there were just definitely some nuggets in there that I felt like I could add to and share my opinion and share my thoughts. But definitely go check out the whole thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would love to know what you think about what I said, what Rosie said, everything down in the comments section down below. I appreciate y'all so much, and I'll see you next time. Peace.